You know what nobody tells you about working the graveyard shift at a gas station? It's not the drunks or the tweakers or even the occasional robbery attempt that gets under your skin. It's the silence. That specific kind of silence that settles in around 2:30 in the morning when even the highway traffic dies down to maybe one car every 15 minutes. And you're standing there under those fluorescent lights that buzz just loud enough to remind you that you're awake when the whole world is sleeping. The neon signs casting their red and blue glow across empty asphalt, fog rolling in from whatever field or forest surrounds your little island of light, and you start thinking thoughts you shouldn't think. Like whether you'd even notice if the world ended out there beyond the reach of your lights, or if maybe it already did and you're just the last one who doesn't know it yet. I've been collecting stories from night shift workers for the past few months, gas station attendants mostly, the ones who work those godforsaken shifts at the stations off the interstate, the ones that barely show up on GPS, where the coffee maker is older than most of the employees and the bathroom key is attached to a hubcap so people don't walk off with it. These aren't ghost stories from some campfire or creepypasta forum. These are things that happen to real people who still show up to work every night because bills don't care about your nightmares. 5 of them stuck with me. 5 that I can't seem to shake, no matter how many times I tell myself there's a rational explanation. The first one came from a guy named Marcus, who worked at a Shell station just outside Bakersfield. He told me this over coffee at a diner, his hands shaking slightly as he stirred in his 3rd packet of sugar. Marcus had been doing nights for about 7 months when it happened. He said the worst part about that particular station was that it sat at a crossroads where 2 county highways met, surrounded by almond orchards that went on for miles in every direction. During the day, you could see for what felt like forever, just rows and rows of trees in perfect lines. But at night those orchards turned into walls of darkness that pressed in close to the lights. And sometimes when the wind picked up, you could hear the leaves rustling like whispers. Thousands of them all talking at once about something you weren't meant to hear. It was a Tuesday night, Marcus said. He remembered because Tuesdays were when they got the beer delivery. And he'd just finished stocking the cooler when he heard the bell chime that meant someone had pulled up to the pumps. He looked at the monitor and saw a dark sedan, maybe a late 90s model, couldn't tell the exact make from the grainy feed. The car just sat there, engine running, headlights on, but nobody got out. Marcus waited. He was used to people sitting in their cars for a minute, finishing a phone call or looking for their wallet, but this went on for nearly 5 minutes. Just the car sitting there, exhaust visible in the cold air, and nobody moving inside. Finally, he grabbed the squeegee and headed out, figuring maybe he'd offer to clean their windshield, give them a chance to say they needed help or whatever. The fog had rolled in thick that night, he said, the kind that doesn't come in gradually, but just appears all at once like someone threw a blanket over everything. His shoes made these soft scuffing sounds on the concrete, and the fluorescent lights overhead were creating these halos in the mist that made everything look like an old photograph, all washed out and unreal. When he got close to the car, he could see there was definitely someone in the driver's seat. Dark shape, head tilted forward slightly like they were looking at something in their lap. Marcus tapped on the window with his knuckle, gentle-like, not trying to startle anyone. The person looked up at him, and Marcus said this is the part that still makes his stomach drop. They made eye contact through the window. A man, pale face, eyes that caught the light from the station. But here's the thing that Marcus kept coming back to. The detail that he couldn't rationalize away, no matter how hard he tried. When he glanced down at the side mirror, the one that should have shown the driver's profile, there was nothing there. The mirror showed the empty interior of the car, the passenger seat, the back seat, all crystal clear. But where the driver should have been reflected, there was just absence. Not even a blur or a shadow, just the seat and the headrest and the seatbelt hanging unused. Marcus stepped back. He said he didn't even make a conscious decision to do it. His body just moved on its own, some animal part of his brain screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with what he was seeing. The driver's head turned to follow him, still maintaining that eye contact. And then slowly, so slowly, the window started to roll down. Manual crank, Marcus said. He could hear the mechanism grinding. The man opened his mouth like he was about to say something, and Marcus just turned and walked back to the store as fast as he could without breaking into a run. Didn't look back. Got inside, locked the door even though they weren't supposed to lock it during business hours, and watched the monitor. The car sat there for another 3 minutes, window still partway down, and then it just pulled away. No squealing tires, no revving engine, just smoothly backed out and disappeared into the fog heading east on County Road 12. Marcus put in his 2 weeks the next morning. He works day shifts now at a station in town where there's always traffic and sunlight, and he never has to wonder what's real and what isn't. Before we finished our coffee, he leaned in close and asked me something. He said, "Where are you when you listen to this stuff? What time is it for you right now?" I told him it was about 1 in the afternoon. Bright sun outside. He nodded slowly and said, "Good. Don't think about it at night. Don't let it into your head when you're alone." Then he paid his tab and left, and I haven't been able to reach him since. But sitting here now, recording this I glance at my clock and it's creeping past 3 in the morning, I understand what he meant. So tell me, where are you right now? What time is it where you are? Drop it in the comments, just so I know someone's out there listening. Someone's awake with me in this particular kind of darkness. The second account comes from a woman I'll call Sarah because she asked me not to use her real name. She's still working nights, still at the same Chevron station off Interstate 40 in New Mexico, and she doesn't want her boss knowing she's talking about this stuff. Sarah's been doing the graveyard shift for almost 4 years, and she told me that the thing people don't understand is that after a while, you develop a routine that keeps you sane. You clean the coffee machines at exactly 2:15, you restock the candy bars at 2:45, you mop the floors at 3:30. The routine becomes armor against the weirdness of being the only person awake for miles. But routines can be broken. Sarah said it started happening about 6 months ago. Every Thursday night, around 3:45 in the morning, a pickup truck would pull into the lot. Not to the pumps, just into the parking area near the air compressor. It would sit there idling for exactly 7 minutes, and then it would leave. She noticed it because at 3:45 she was always finishing up the mopping, putting the wet floor signs away, and the headlights would sweep across the windows as the truck pulled in. The first few times, she didn't think much of it. People stop at gas stations to check their phones, to rest for a minute, to argue with their girlfriend over Bluetooth. She'd see the truck on the camera, a older Ford F-150, dark color. Couldn't tell if it was blue or black in the sodium vapor lights. But it kept happening, every Thursday. Same time, same duration, same parking spot. And here's what started bothering Sarah. She never once saw anyone get out of that truck. Never saw the door open, never saw a silhouette move inside, nothing. Just a truck that would arrive, sit there with its engine running and its lights on, and then leave. After about 5 weeks of this, her curiosity got the better of her. She decided that next Thursday she was going to go out there and actually talk to whoever it was, maybe ask if they needed help or if there was some problem she could solve, so they'd stop making her nervous. Thursday came around. She watched the clock. 3:43, 3:44. Right at 3:45, she heard the crunch of gravel and tires, and there it was, the truck pulling into its usual spot. Sarah grabbed her jacket even though it wasn't cold, just something to do with her hands, and she walked out there. The lot was empty except for her own car parked around back in this truck. The lights from the canopy over the pumps barely reached this far, so she was walking from brightness into shadow, and the truck's headlights were pointed away from her, so she was approaching from the driver's side in relative darkness. She got about 10 feet away when she realized she couldn't hear the engine anymore. It had been running when she walked out, she was sure of that. But now, there was just silence. The headlights were still on, though, cutting through the darkness toward the interstate. Sarah stopped. Something about the silence felt wrong, felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. She called out, asked if everything was okay. No response. She took another step closer, and that's when she noticed the windows. All of them. Completely fogged up from the inside. Condensation so thick she couldn't see through the glass at all. But here's the thing that made her turn around and go back inside. The fog on the windows was moving, not like it was dripping down or evaporating. moving like something inside was breathing on the glass, but breathing in patterns, in rhythm, multiple sources of breath all at once, like there were dozens of people packed inside that truck, all exhaling against the windows at the same time. Sarah didn't run. She told me she was proud of that. She walked back to the store with measured steps, got inside, and watched the monitor. At 3:52, exactly 7 minutes after it had arrived, the truck's lights went off. Just clicked off all at once. And then, with the engine still silent, the truck rolled backward out of the parking spot, rolled backward across the lot, and rolled backward onto the interstate access road where it disappeared. She checked the recording later. The whole thing was there on digital file. The truck arrives, sits for 7 minutes, lights go off, truck rolls away. She zoomed in on the windows during the time she was outside. Even in the grainy footage, you could see the fog on the glass. And if you looked close enough, if you were willing to see it, you could make out what looked like handprints. Lots of them. Small ones pressed against the inside of every window. That was 4 months ago. The truck still shows up every Thursday at 3:45. Sarah doesn't go outside anymore. She watches it on the monitor, waits for it to leave, and then she finishes her shift. She told me she's thought about quitting, about finding literally any other job, but the thing is, she's a single mother with 2 kids, and this shift pays an extra $3 an hour, and she can't afford to give that up. So every Thursday night, she makes her coffee extra strong, she turns up the radio in the store, and she pretends not to watch the clock as it creeps toward 3:45. Number 3 comes from a Reddit post I found on one of the night shift worker forums. The guy deleted his account after posting it, but I managed to save the text. He said he worked at a BP station in rural Pennsylvania, one of those places where the nearest town is 15 miles in one direction, and there's nothing but forest and the occasional farm in the other. He'd been working there for about 2 months, and he said the job was fine, boring but fine, until he started noticing the regular. The regular was what he called her, a woman in a yellow raincoat who would come in every night at exactly 2:37 in the morning. She never bought gas, just came into the store, walked to the back where the refrigerated section was, and stood there looking at the energy drinks for about 4 minutes. Then she'd leave. Never bought anything. Never spoke. Just stood there in her yellow raincoat, staring at the brightly colored cans of Red Bull and Monster and whatever generic brand they stocked. The first week he saw her, he asked if she needed help finding something. She didn't respond, didn't even turn to look at him. Just kept staring at the refrigerator case, her breath fogging up the glass. He tried a few more times to engage with her, offered assistance, asked about the weather, even joked about the energy drink selection. Nothing. She'd just stand there, and then at 2:41, like clockwork, she'd turn and walk out. He could see her through the windows afterward, walking across the parking lot toward the tree line, the yellow raincoat bright against the darkness, and then she'd just be gone. Not like she walked into the trees, more like she reached a certain point and simply wasn't there anymore. There 1 second, gone the next. This went on for about 3 weeks. Every single night, 2:37, yellow raincoat, 4 minutes of staring at energy drinks. He started timing it, started keeping a log because the consistency was so strange it felt like it had to mean something. Then one night, he decided to look at what she was looking at. After she left, he walked back to the refrigerator case and tried to see what was so fascinating about that particular spot. The drinks were arranged like they always were. Nothing special, nothing unusual. But then he noticed something. On the glass, right at eye level where she always stood, there was a date written in what looked like condensation. Except the store was climate controlled, and there was no reason for condensation to form letters and definitely no reason for it to form numbers that spelled out a date from 12 years ago. He grabbed some paper towels and wiped it off, told himself he was seeing things, that it was just random moisture that his brain was pattern matching into meaning. But the next night when the woman came in at 2:37, when she stood in her spot and stared at the energy drinks, he watched carefully. And he saw her breath fogging the glass, saw her lift one finger, and saw her slowly trace out that same date again. Month, day, year, 12 years ago. Then she turned and left at 2:41 like always. He went home that morning and he looked up that date online, adding keywords for the area, for the station, for anything that might give him context. What he found was a news article from a small local paper. On that date, 12 years ago, a young woman had been found in her car at a BP station in that exact location. She'd been missing for 3 days. The coroner's report said she'd died of exposure, had run out of gas during a winter storm and apparently made it to the station, but it had been closed. The night attendant had called in sick. She'd frozen to death in her car waiting for help that never came. The article included a photo. The young woman was wearing a yellow raincoat. The guy who posted this on Reddit said he put in his notice that same day. He worked out his remaining 2 weeks, and on his last shift at 2:37, the woman in the yellow raincoat came in for the last time. But this time, she didn't go to the refrigerators. She walked straight up to the counter where he was standing, and for the first time, she looked directly at him. Her eyes were clouded over like cataracts, and when she opened her mouth, he said what came out wasn't words, but the sound of wind, that hollow whistling sound wind makes when it blows through empty spaces. Then she turned and walked out, and he never saw her again. The post ended with him saying he was moving to Phoenix, somewhere warm, somewhere where it never snows and gas stations are never closed, and nobody dies waiting for help that doesn't come. I'm getting myself another cup of coffee here, my 4th one tonight, and my hands are steadier than Marcus's were, but I understand the impulse now. The need for something warm, something normal, something to remind you that you're still in the regular world where things make sense. The clock on my wall is showing 4:17 in the morning and I'm in my home office, but I keep looking at the window, at the reflection of the room in the dark glass, and I keep thinking about Marcus and that side mirror showing an empty seat and Fim. Let me tell you about the 4th one. This one's different because it didn't happen at night. Or rather, it did happen at night for the person working. But the story is about the day shift discovering what the night shift left behind. A guy named Tom worked day shifts at an Exxon Mobil in rural Oregon, and he told me that for about 3 months, every time he came in for the 6 a.m. opening, he'd find strange things that the night guy, Eddie, had apparently done. Like the entire candy rack would be reorganized, not randomly, but in a very specific pattern. Color-coded, darkest to lightest, left to right. Or all the magazines would be turned backward so the spines were showing. Or the windshield washer fluid would be arranged in a pyramid in the middle of the store. Tom asked Eddie about it multiple times. Eddie always seemed confused, said he didn't know what Tom was talking about, said he didn't touch the candy or the magazines or build any pyramids. But the cameras showed him doing it. Tom would review the footage and there was Eddie at 3 or 4 in the morning, methodically rearranging everything. The weird part was Eddie's expression while he did it, completely blank. Not focused, not engaged, just empty. Like someone had scooped out whoever Eddie was and left a shell that moved around and performed tasks without any consciousness behind it. This escalated over those 3 months. The patterns got more complex, more time-consuming. Eddie would spend hours arranging products in designs that didn't make any sense. Concentric circles of beef jerky. The entire lottery ticket display removed and rebuilt backward. Every single item in the cooler turned so its label faced inward. Tom brought it up to management, showed them the tapes. They called Eddie in and confronted him. Eddie had no memory of any of it, seemed genuinely distressed by the footage of himself doing these things. He said the last thing he remembered from each shift was around 2 a.m., and then everything was a blank until his shift ended at 6. They were going to fire him, maybe suggest he see a doctor, but then Eddie stopped showing up. Called in sick once, didn't call the second night, and by the 3rd night, the manager went to his apartment to check on him. Eddie was gone. Not missing, not dead, just gone. His apartment was empty. Not just empty of Eddie, but empty of everything. No furniture, no clothes, no personal items, nothing but bare walls and carpet. The landlord said Eddie had been a perfect tenant for 2 years, paid rent on time, never caused any problems, had no idea where he'd gone. But here's the thing Tom told me that made this whole story feel like it connected to something bigger. The night after they discovered Eddie was gone, Tom had to cover the night shift because they were short-staffed. And around 2 a.m., He said he started feeling strange. Tired, but not sleepy tired. Distant tired, like he was watching himself from far away. And he had this overwhelming urge to reorganize the candy rack, color-coded, darkest to lightest. He said he stood up, started walking toward the candy, and then he forced himself to stop. Forced himself to go outside and stand in the cold air and breathe until the feeling passed. He quit the next day, told the manager he was moving back in with his parents in California. But what he told me, what he really did, was he just stopped working night shifts anywhere, got a job at a restaurant doing lunch prep, swore he'd never work past sunset again. The last one, number 5, this is the one that bothers me the most because it's still happening. There's a Shell station outside of Austin, Texas, and the night attendant there is a college student named Maya. She works Thursday through Sunday, midnight to 8 a.m., and she told me that about 2 months ago she started finding notes. Little pieces of paper, receipts usually, with messages written on them. They'd be in strange places, tucked into the credit card reader at the pump, folded up inside the straw dispenser, slipped between the lottery tickets. The messages were always the same handwriting, cramped and small, and they said things like, "Don't trust the cameras," or "Check the back room at 3," or "The man in the blue jacket is not what he seems." Maya ignored them at first, figured it was some weirdo playing games, maybe someone from the day shift messing with her. But then she found one that said, "I'm trying to warn you," and another that said, "It's already started." That's when she started paying attention to the cameras, started actually reviewing the footage to see who was leaving these notes. And she found something that didn't make sense. The notes would appear during her shift. She'd find them fresh, ink, still wet sometimes, but the cameras never showed anyone placing them. She'd watch the footage of the pump where she found a note tucked into the card reader, and she'd see customers come and go, see herself walking out to help someone, but never, not once, did she see anyone touch that card reader or put anything in it. Yet when she'd go to check in real time, there'd be a new note. The content of the notes started getting more specific. "Your car's leaking oil, check the tank." She checked. It was. "The man who comes in at 4:17 is going to try to rob you, his gun isn't loaded." Sure enough, a guy came in at 4:17, pulled a gun, demanded the money from the register. Maya hit the silent alarm like she was supposed to, gave him the money, and he ran. When police caught him 2 blocks away, they found the gun. It wasn't loaded. "There's a leak in the cooler, back left corner. It's going to flood tonight." She found the leak before it became a problem. Every note was accurate. Every warning was real. Maya told me the notes have started getting stranger. Less about immediate dangers and more about... She paused when she told me this, trying to find the right words. More about her specifically. Personal things. "You're worried about your midterm on Friday, on a Monday night." And she'd been stressed about organic chemistry all week. "Your mom is going to call tomorrow at 9 a.m. Answer it, she needs to hear your voice." Her mom did call, and it turned out she'd been having chest pains and wanted to tell Maya before she went to the doctor. "You're not supposed to be here, but you don't know where else you'd be." That one didn't make sense until she really thought about it. She's majoring in engineering, but she hates it. She's doing it because her parents wanted her to have a stable career. She doesn't know what she actually wants to do. The most recent note said, "When you finish listening to this, look behind you." Maya swears she found that exact note with that exact message 3 days ago. She hasn't listened to this recording yet. I'm sending it to her tomorrow. But I believe her. I believe all of them. Because the thing about these stories is they're too specific to be made up and too consistent to be coincidence. Gas stations at night become thin places, I think. Places where the membrane between what we understand and what we don't gets stretched so tight, you can almost see through it. The fluorescent lights and the neon signs and the fog and the silence all conspire to show you things that maybe are always there, but you only notice when you're alone and the world is asleep and your brain can't rationalize everything away because you're too tired to lie to yourself. It's almost 5 in the morning now. I've been recording this for hours and I'm going to wrap it up soon, but I want to leave you with something. If you work nights, If you've ever worked nights, especially at a gas station or anywhere isolated, anywhere where you're the only person awake for miles, I want you to know that what you saw was probably real. That feeling you had, that certainty that something was wrong. That was your instincts trying to protect you. Don't let anyone tell you it was just fatigue or stress or your imagination. Trust what you felt in that moment. Trust that quickening of your pulse, that voice in your head that said leave, that said run, that said this is not right. Those instincts kept our ancestors alive for thousands of years, and they're still trying to keep us alive now. And if you've never worked nights, if you're just someone who likes scary stories, I want you to think about this. Every gas station you pass on the highway, every convenience store glowing in the darkness off some exit ramp, there's a person in there. A real person working a real job for real money. They need to survive, and they're alone. And sometimes things happen that they can't explain, and they have to come back the next night anyway, because what else are they going to do? So maybe next time you stop for gas at 3 in the morning, maybe you make eye contact with that attendant and you nod. You acknowledge them. You remind both of you that you're real and they're real, and the world is still the world, even if it feels like it's not. Before I stop recording, I want to check something. That note Maya told me about. The one that said, when you finish listening to this, look behind you. I know you're listening to this on your phone or your computer, probably in bed or maybe in your car or maybe, God help you, at your job on a night shift somewhere. I want you to do something for me. When this recording ends, when my voice stops talking in your ear, I want you to look behind you. Just a quick glance, just to confirm there's nothing there. Because there won't be, probably. Almost certainly there won't be. But isn't it interesting that you're a little bit nervous to check? Isn't it interesting that even though you know it's going to be nothing, empty space or a wall or your bedroom, some part of you is already tensing up, already preparing to see something you don't want to see? That's the power of suggestion, sure. That's your brain playing tricks. But maybe it's also that you know deep down in the animal part of yourself that's older than language or logic, you know that the world is stranger than you pretend it is during the day. You know there are things at the edges of understanding, things that show themselves when we're tired and alone and vulnerable. You know this because every human who's ever lived has known this. We've just gotten very good at pretending we don't. So go ahead. Look behind you. I'll wait. The recording will keep going for a few more seconds, just silence, just dead air, giving you time to turn around and look and prove to yourself that there's nothing there. Ready? Check now. 3, 2, 1.